I'm Michael Jones, the Interim Dean of the Gary W. Rollins College of Business, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to the Why Not Win presented by Mr. Larry Thornton. This month is a time to reflect on the past, celebrate the future, and celebrate the present and inspire the future. And today we have the privilege of doing all three through the incredible story and insights of our distinguished guest, Mr. Larry Thornton. Mr. Thornton's story is one of determination, courage, and vision. From growing up in the Jim Crow South to breaking barriers as the first African-American McDonald's franchisee in Birmingham, his journey is a testament to what is possible when we embrace leadership, resilience, and the mindset of success. With more than 50 years of experience in business and entrepreneurship, he has built a legacy not just in the corporate world, but also in the lives of those he inspires every day. Through the Why Not Win Institute, a nonprofit organization dedicated to developing and cultivating individual excellence, Mr. Thornton provides leadership lessons to universities, high schools, and corporations, empowering students, professionals, and future leaders to unlock their full potential. Mr. Thornton is more than an entrepreneur, though. He's an artist, an author, and a servant leader, and a game changer. His life story is one that not only inspires, but challenges us to think about how we, too, can lead, serve, and make a lasting impact. So today, as we celebrate Black History Month, I encourage each of you to listen closely and embrace the lessons that Mr. Thornton will share. His journey is proof that success is not just about opportunity, it is about mindset, perseverance, and the willingness to say, why not win? I want to thank Mr. Thornton for sharing his time and expertise with us today. I also want to thank the UC Foundation, the Office of Multicultural Affairs, and the Office of Advancement and Engagement for their support of today's programming. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Frank Butler, the Richard X. Zhang Endowed Professor in Business in the Rollins College of Business. Dr. Butler teaches strategic management, which is the capstone course for all College of Business students at the undergraduate and the graduate levels. We appreciate his work in bringing Mr. Thornton to campus for this program. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Butler to the stage.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it. I first want to say I appreciate all of you showing up. This is an amazing turnout. I know you will not be disappointed by Larry's presentation you're going to see here in a minute. I do, again, want to thank Chattanooga Prep for bringing students here and the UC Foundation for making that happen. That was wonderful. It's actually interesting because Chattanooga Prep is where I first met Larry, 2 years ago now? You all have received a copy of a book, and if you haven't gotten it, please make sure to grab one before you leave. But you'll notice that there's a gentleman on here named Dave Ketchen. And Dave's a mutual friend of Larry and mine. And Dave Ketchen also happens to be like the biggest name in my field of strategy. And I'm fortunate he's a friend, but when David says, you should go see Larry speak, you're going to go see Larry speak. And boy, I tell you what, he's not wrong. I went there. I mean, again, it was about 2 years ago. I was shocked, and as my wife will tell you, I'm glued to my phone, and emails, messages, reading, trying to figure out my class prep stuff, everything. Like I do it all on my phone. I'm just like absolutely just mesmerized by this device. But during Larry's presentation, I didn't touch it at all. In fact, I remember after it was done, not only did I text Dave, but I texted my wife and said, oh my God, this was the best thing ever. And I've been scheming to figure out a way to get Larry here today. And what a better time for it than Black History Month. I mean, this is something that his experiences, and one of the things I love about this graphic novel is that it really brings the story to life in a way that's different than just a traditional book. Although his traditional book is also outstanding, I encourage you guys to check that out as well. I'll go ahead and plug that. But I've been a big believer of what Larry's done, and I find it just so easy to digest and really changes your perspective quite a bit. So that's been something that I think, do give this a read. It's 90 pages. It's really a fun read, but really powerful and impactful. And if you're one of those people who's worried about AI kind of taking jobs and so on, it is going to be these soft skills, or I call them winning skills. Larry might refer to them as critical skills. It's those skills that are going to be necessary to keep you relevant and important going forward, because it's the relationships you make and how you perceive others that are going to really be the difference maker in your careers and your lives to make it fulfilling. And so that's Larry's story, and I'm not going to take anything from him because he does it so much better than me. So there's that. But I do want to do one last special thank you though to our marketing and comms team: Katrina, Sandy, Katie, Omar. Without you guys, this wouldn't have happened. So thank you for helping my dream come to a reality. Catherine, Michael, helping me with the funding and getting this all done. So really am really honored to have Larry here. And so please help me welcome Larry Thornton to the stage.
Let me say this to you, because I believe it with all of my heart. One of the most horrifying nightmares that any human being could ever have is to one day be introduced to the person that you never became.
One of the things that the Institute brings forth from people is an understanding of what their true potential is as an individual who's part of a community who can lift others up and be lifted up by them.
Things happen. Companies and organizations go through turbulent times. Sometimes performance doesn't meet standards. Sometimes you're just not a fit. But the one thing that you have to keep in mind is that you've got to sharpen your skills. You've got to stay in a space where you're constantly learning and developing and evolving, because that's how you stay employable.
What is it that you see when you see me? That has to be one of the innermost personal questions that we can ask of ourselves. And it's not a question uniquely for leadership. This is personal.
The work of the Why Not Win Institute challenges our thinking, our perceptions, and at times our realities. And it forces us to change the way we do things in hopes of being a winner, creating winning situations, and relating to people in a way that we normally wouldn't.
The work of Why Not Win is important because it helps on self-development, helps you become a better person, and as a consequence of that, it helps on how you create more impact in the society.
When we include others into our sphere of influence, we win. I get the question all the time, how do you do art and you're writing a book and you own 7 restaurants and you serve on corporate board? It's not me, it's other people.
Why Not Win work is important. It's important because everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to win. It's about relationships, and we help them win by developing relationships, because that's what we're trying to win on, is find our individual greatness.
It's all about winning. I don't know if I've met anybody that didn't want to win. I've met several people, though, that weren't quite sure of those rudiments, those processes of thinking that leads to a winning circumstance. Some of the things that I'm saying is not new at all. In fact, they are quite primordial, perhaps even existential in nature, but we overlook them. And I'm here to try to put a spotlight on that because I nearly fell into the very opening statement, and I think it's worth saying again. One of the most horrifying nightmares that any human being could ever have is to one day be introduced to the person that you never became. How horrible would that be? I never actualized. I never materialized because I didn't put the work in. Young people, there's absolutely no substitution for hard work. And when we say that term, I think people immediately go to busting rock or slinging asphalt. No, just being focused. Understanding the value of time. Just showing up on, you know how many people miss their end for no other reason? That they have this terrible regard for time. We're going to get into a couple of the slides, but I got to do some housekeeping. Darren, Vice President of the Tennessee Valley Region for Coca-Cola United. That's what this emblem says. Darren, when I got off the elevator, Frank will tell you, the first thing I saw was Coca-Cola. I started with Coca-Cola in 1979, $5 an hour as a sign painter for Coca-Cola. Today, I get to serve on the board of directors of that same company. Young people, that is an awesome American story. It is an even more awesome African American story, of which I take great pride in sharing. And I want to share with you what leads to starting with a company, $5 an hour, and then matriculating on to sitting on the board of directors, the largest independent bottler in the nation, 6 southeastern states, just over 10,000 associates. And I cannot tell you how humbly grateful, Darren, I am to have had this opportunity. Would you please stand and ask Clyde and your team to stand? Please stand up. Please stand up. These are the guys that make the numbers. Can we give them a round of applause for what they do? Thank you. This is a Coca-Cola pouring account. Not sure where we are in the contract, but it always makes me feel good. When I got to Carrollton, Georgia, that's one of the first things that I saw. I just feel at home. This water that I'm drinking is not just water. Audience, this is the sunny water made by the Coca-Cola company. Somebody handed me, I was speaking, I won't even say the brand, Darren, but they handed me a bottle and it wasn't right. I said, if somebody snapped a picture of this, I could see Claude Nielsen now, if that were the case. But let's understand the essence of why we are here. And that's for no other reason than to get to the next level. Adults, don't make the mistake of thinking that this is just a talk for the young people. How do we get to the next level? What's my role? What's my responsibility? And I will tell you that most people, this has been my experience, most people do not understand their own role in their own personal growth and development. McDonald's, no exception. Our employees will come and work for us 3-4 weeks, 3 or 4 months, leave mad at the manager, mad at me and my son, go across the street to Burger King, do the same thing 3-4 weeks, a month or two, mad with the manager, then go to Hardee's, and sometimes they'll circle back to us. And they never stop to say, this is the value right here. How many times did I call in when I really could have come to work? How many times did I thank the customer and ask for repeat business? How many times did my grandmother die? Poor grandma. This is the 4th time, Jerry, that your grandmama has died. Yeah, and we do that, and we never see it. And I'm here today to help us to turn the focus back on you. I wanted to capture those rudiments of thought, processes of thinking that I thought would lead to a winning experience. What's our first slide? And I'll run through those and then I'll do a talk, and I want to get some Q&A. Keep rolling. Those are the 2 books. The book was dropped in 2019. Today, that book is in over 45 colleges and universities as either a mandatory read, a book study, or a common read. If my senior English teacher, I mentioned to somebody earlier, Angela, could know that the boy that she couldn't get to read a book has written a book with such collegiate reach Frank, she must be turning in her grave somewhere. And I'm going to talk about that story of how do you go from point A to B. But we're excited about the work that we do, have some interesting work going on now in the Alabama Black Belt. We are committed to all 12 counties. Montgomery. And this is what lets you know that you're on the right track. So we did all of Birmingham City Schools, all of Montgomery City Schools. So I wanted to go to Montgomery. That is the system attorney from Montgomery, right? 1967, one of 6 black students to integrate this all-white school. Dr. King was killed later in that same school term in 68. The tremendous messages of inferiority on a daily basis. I mean, I skipped the first grade, so I'm just 12 years old in the 9th grade, and I've got all of this messaging coming. But I'm going to get to that story in a second. But I want to go to the system that I integrated in 1967. But the superintendent was new, Dr. Brown, and I didn't want to put that on his desk. I get a call. What I'm about to tell you now, I would call universal and divine serendipity. I get a call that says, Larry, I hear you're trying to come to Montgomery to talk to our kids. I said, yeah, George, I am. And he said, well, we're excited about that and ready for you to come. The schools need you to come. I said, yeah, I just got to get these books worked out. He said, if you're coming to Montgomery, you don't worry about the books. I'll take care of the books. All of them. 3,500 books. That was a $74,000 ticket to sponsor the books for 7th graders and 11th graders. What a move. But here's what's so astonishing. That gentleman's name is George Goodwin. The school that I integrated in 1967 was Goodwin Junior High School, named after his grandfather. And I'm thinking over 50 years, we've got this full circle event. He's one of the nicest, one of the most humble, most unassuming individuals that you could meet. But here's what I said to him, Angela. I said, George, now understandably, I have no good memories of your granddaddy's school. Man, it was tough on us every day. More of the outside agitators that would show up to do us harm. I said, but George, it would be my honor if you would join me when we get to Goodwin. He said to me, Frank, Larry, not only will I be there, but my daddy will be there too. And you're talking about such a resonant moment. I'm in that same lunchroom where I would sit down and all of the white kids would get their tray and leave me sitting there. You walk down the halls, everybody would get out of the way. You drink water, nobody would drink it. You know, all of those inadvertent messages. And I bought into it. And I'll get into that more often. But I love that piece right there. The fact that George would do that for the system. What's next? Now, Frank talked about these. If you have your cell phones, you should take a snapshot of this. You should hold this. You could probably remember them. But I'm telling you, this is it. When I go into the inner city schools, Darren, I'm not talking about your major, what you want to be when you grow up. I'm talking about these. Because it doesn't matter what you want to be when you grow up. If you don't have these, now I'm telling you what I know. Serving at the highest executive levels of 3 corporations, not once have we terminated or deliberated on a termination, not once, because of one's competency or capacity level. Not once. Don't miss this. In every case, it was an inability to work well with others. We've got the vice president here today, the Tennessee Valley. I can guarantee you a good 80 to 90% of what shows up on his desk has more to do with the individual than it does the company or the boss. Personal responsibility, personal accountability, personal discipline. Now, what's the converse of that? If you do major in a certain discipline, and if you don't have these, you still lose. That's the message. Ralph Cook was the second black Chief Justice of the state of Alabama. He's back litigating now. You're an attorney. He's back litigating now. You should hear the story that Ralph tells. He said, Larry, you wouldn't believe the amount of litigation we do on an annual basis on behalf of physicians. And he said, for no other reason, Larry, than poor bedside manners. Now just think about that. 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school after having sat for the MCAT, passed the medical bar, 4 years of residency, but you never learn how to talk to people. And the statistics will tell you that an additional 20 seconds of empathy relating to that patient or the patient's family can make all of the difference in a lawsuit. These are key. Communication skills, relationship skills, demeanor, deportment, disposition. I have no other explanation for you other than having given attention to these. I mean, how is it that a guy who has a degree in art can own 7 restaurants, serve on 3 corporate boards, a degree in art? And some of you in here know individuals who have MBAs hanging on their walls and cannot run a lemonade stand. What's the difference? Can't work well with people. Can't get people to work with you. It's paramount. It's paramount. It's the reason I'm spending so much time here, because I don't hear enough people, Frank, talking about these. We're busy getting the hard skills. Well, hard skills will only get you 50%. 85% this. So your attitude is everything. It's more important than money. It's more important than talent. It's more important than abilities. It's the one thing that we have is our mindset. And I'll tell you, what's next? Here they are. Prep group. What's your name? Sean. Can you read those up there? Yeah. Talents, abilities,
time, mind.
You have those. Everybody in here, you own these. Nobody can take them from you. They're mine. But what happens? We don't unwrap them to utilize them. And we think, well, when I graduate college, I'm going to I'm going to show people what I can do. You don't have to wait until you graduate. You can start right now. Let me tell you how I unwrap my gift. Y'all are going to love this. I'm in the 4th grade. See, I knew as early as 2nd grade that I had some modicum of artistic inclination. I knew I had something until Ms. Cook helped me to see what I really had. So now I'm in the 4th grade, and I see Geraldine. Oh, Geraldine was the most beautiful girl at Madison Park. I love Geraldine. But Frank, I had a problem. My good friend Melvin liked Geraldine too. Well, I skipped the 1st grade, so I'm like 5 in the 2nd, so 6, 7, I'm about 8 years old. Melvin's a little older, he's taller, he's faster, We did everything together. We were buds, catching tadpoles, shooting marbles. Our favorite was stomping and kicking ant beds over. And we have a contest. How many did you get stung? Did you get bit? That was our contest. We didn't have toys, so we did what we did. So I like Geraldine. Melvin likes Geraldine. Problem. But I could do the one thing that Melvin couldn't. I could draw. So one day, during recess period, I write Geraldine's name. Oh, it was fancy, colorful, Cupid hearts. It impressed me. So I slipped it onto Geraldine's desk. When recess was over, she came in and she found this beautifully written name, Geraldine, and I could see in her eyes that she was impressed. She went flitting it around the room to the other girls. She looked, and so Melvin can't take it anymore. He says, Larry did it. Geraldine turned to me and said the words that I wanted to hear without saying a single word at all. When the other girls rushed over to say, oh, can you write my name like that? So even as a young brother, you got to know how to handle these things. No, I can only write Geraldine's name like that. Do you think Geraldine was impressed? So now, Frank, it's time to write the most impressive document that any fourth grader ever writes. Now, y'all have cell phones today. Y'all type, y'all would text it, Snapchat. It went like this. Dear Geraldine, I like you. I hope you like me too. Will you be my girlfriend? Please sign on the dotted line, yes or no. You remember, you must have gotten several of those notes. Well, Geraldine didn't give me an answer. She took my note home. Oh, that night seemed like a week. Next morning, she put it on my desk. Before I could get it, Melvin snatched it, opened it. But when he threw it on the floor, I knew Geraldine had answered in the affirmative. We made eyes all day long. The next day I brought her a piece of bubble gum, and it's Valentine's Day. I wonder if that'll work today, if I could get my sweetie a bubble gum. She brought me a hot ball, and we lived happily, really, ever after for about 4 weeks. And we broke up for one reason or another, and Melvin and I were back shooting marbles and catching tadpoles. We were buds again. But your gifts can win you a heart for a season. You got to unwrap your gifts. Let's utilize these. What's next? Life is interesting. And I will tell you, the older I get, I don't say anything else but that. You know? And y'all, some of you all know what I mean. Life is interesting. But here's the thing. Life is only interesting to interesting people. We missed that. Life is exciting, but only to exciting people. It's true. Life is dull, boring, lugubrious, but only to dull, boring, and lugubrious people. It is also true, ladies and gentlemen, that life is successful, but only to successful people. As an artist, I can say this. We paint our world. Don't allow other people to paint your world. It's your world. It's your story. This is not a dress rehearsal, ladies and gentlemen. We are here. Let's make it count. That's what I came to believe. Making it count. What's next? I think we talked about unwrapping your gifts, so I won't spend any time on that. So let's go. But you know, I have to say this. See, we all have these talents and these gifts. It would be like if I brought a gift today and I presented it to you and you just got so excited, the ribbons were pretty, the red paper, and then you go home and you put it on the top shelf and you never open it. That's what people do throughout the entirety of their lives. They don't have to, but they don't know. Reminds me of the elephant. We went into a circus And they brought us in the back way for some reason. Maybe I was a Coca-Cola dignitary or something. But we came through the back, and I saw these 6 elephants, and they were just standing there swinging their trunks. And when they would make a little slight move, and as soon as they felt that little resistance, they would stop and pause and shake again. They have no idea that the utilization of 1/10 of their strength, you can pop that chain and do whatever you want to do. That's us, ladies and gentlemen. Don't just go through life. I've never wanted to be any more than I am. Y'all met people like that. They're hard to be around. But I never wanted to be any less than I could be. Isn't that an interesting place to be? I don't want to get ahead of myself, trying to do something that I hadn't prepared for. But man, I don't want to leave anything on the table. I want to be all. And when I tell you what led to that, you'll see my point. What's next? Now, let's get real. Let's get kind of deep here. This has to be one of the most personal questions that we can ask of ourselves. Your capacity to succeed in life will be completely dependent upon the number of people that you can invite into your sphere of influence. We play these little silly games as children. We don't let people into our little circle. It was counterproductive as kids. He's too tall, too short, too fat, hair too nappy, too black, too white, too dumb, too smart, I call it the TOO syndrome. Well, you'd be amazed at how many adults play that game to their own detriment. Your success will be inextricably linked. VP of the Tennessee Valley has to understand this, or he wouldn't be in charge that long. Your success is completely contingent upon the ability to create successful opportunities for everybody else. That's a winner. And there's no end to where that can go. What is it that you see when you see me? It's a powerful question. I would argue that most of us in here have at least one bias that you can call the question right here. What is it that you see when you see me? What is it that I see when I see you? In terms of age, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, housing status, financial status, capacity in terms of ableness, religious belief, we're all intertwined. Get to know somebody that doesn't look like you. You'll grow, you'll benefit. Get to know somebody that doesn't believe what you believe, who might not think what you think. It's okay. Because the more people we can invite in, it undergirds you for your success. This destroys relationships, even within ethnicities. I'll tell you a story. I'm almost ashamed to tell you, but it happened and it's true. I'm taking my first flight out of the country. This is in 1999. We're going to the Winter Games, opening ceremonies of the Winter Games. McDonald's is sending us over. Well, we get to Buffalo and we get on this big 747. I cannot believe that this thing, this big, this heavy, can stay in the air for 10 hours. You've got to be kidding me. And so all of this is running through my mind, Darren. I'm trying to get comfortable. Did they put enough fuel? I mean, just all of the things that you're wondering. I've never been out. Because, see, once you take off out of the country, there's no pulling over to check things out. You're committed. And just when I get settled and I'm solid and I'm ready to, all right, I got this. And my director of operations was sitting, I said, we got it. We look up, out of the cockpit walks a black pilot. Never seen a black pilot before in my life. Not sure why I didn't think about the Tuskegee Airmen, but I wasn't. See, I'm good. Now, if Frank was on the plane, I often wonder, I don't have any way of knowing, but if you were on the plane and I was on the ground, would I have said, man, there's a brother flying the plane. Boy, that's awesome. Frank, are you going to be all right, man? Isn't that sad? I questioned this man's capacity internally. I tried to fight it, but it was there. I wouldn't want Frank thinking that. My niece is a physician, ER, in Montgomery, Alabama, and she tells me of all of the looks, and is there anybody else on staff? And you're dying. Sir, I'm it. I think you might ought to let me do what I need to do for you. But those are the games and it affects all of us. When we close people out, I had never seen it before. It affected my week over in Turin, Italy. But this was a private jet, NBC chartered jet. The same pilot that flew us there. See, you do this if you want to be better. He was the same guy. Now I got to get to the cockpit. They are wondering, why does he want to get to the cockpit? Probably got something nefarious on his mind. I got to this brother. I told him what I thought. I apologized. He was so gracious. He has a piece of my artwork. We developed a relationship. But my point is that I grew. How did I grow? 15 years or so later, we're on the company jet during going to the Masters in Augusta. I'm climbing on the plane. I do a double take. There's a woman pilot. I've never seen a woman pilot. But I had a completely different reaction. That's what I'm talking about here. She wouldn't be in the cockpit if she couldn't fly the plane. That's the fact. In fact, if you want to know the real truth, those were probably two of the safest flights I have ever been on, because I knew what it took for that black man to become a pilot, and I knew what it took for that woman to jump through all of the hurdles. Let's call the question to ourselves. Is this honest? Is this just? Is this the best that I can do? And for most of us, the answer is no. I think we can improve. I am so happy to know that my senior English teacher saw what she saw versus what she could have seen, versus what she saw in terms of all of her students, versus what everybody saw. What am I talking about? 1967, I'm at Goodwin. That would matriculate onto Robert E. Lee High School. I went to summer school now don't pattern after me, I'm just telling you the story, okay? I went to summer school in the 9th grade. I went on to Robert E. Lee. I went to summer school. I failed summer school. And I would repeat my failings throughout my high school experience. Not graduating with my class, but graduating in summer school. Now, how do you go to today? I have artwork that's on a U.S. postage stamp. My artwork is owned by former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. Oprah Winfrey has in her private collection. Danny Glover. My artwork. And all of those bad grades that I made in high school when I was drawing, when I should have been paying attention, but somehow n to the second power times y squared by 3 wasn't getting it from me. But if I could just have my mother to see that your baby boy has done okay, Mom. His work is on a U.S. postage stamp. So how do you go from that? An author whose book is in 45 colleges, entrepreneur, 7 McDonald's restaurants, first black in Birmingham. How do you do that? Well, let me tell you how. And I want everybody to challenge themselves with this story. So in the 11th grade, your entire purpose, it seemed, was to so position your schedule, like we could control that, Do not take senior English from Miss Nichols, no matter what you do, okay? Well, I wasn't very smart. I ended up with Miss Nichols for session room and senior English. OMG. See, we didn't have the acronyms like y'all. But if we had the acronyms, y'all excuse me, it would have been WTF. How would I survive Miss Nichols? Me. Well, Miss Nichols assigned a book for me to read. It was called The Pilgrim's Progress, the only book I ever read in high school. I was fascinated by the characters. They would act out the essence of their name: love, charity, mercy, and forgiveness. It tapped into the creative side of me. Ms. Nichols placed a B+ on my desk. She was shocked. I was shocked. But it was enough for her to know that I'm going to reach beyond all of this racial bias, all of what has tucked him to a corner. This guy has something to offer, because I sure as hell didn't think so. Here's the way she did it. Didn't even do it at school, because she knew that I probably would have thought, well, that's what you're supposed to say. So she invited me, as she knew my dad and I did, yard work. And Saturdays we would go to the white folks' house. That's the way. Never knew the names, just to the white folks' house. Cut, scrape, wax paper wrap sandwiches out of the back door, paper cups of water. Ms. Nichols wanted to plant a few annuals. I don't remember much yard work at all, because that was not her objective. When it was time for lunch, she invited me in through the front door. The first time I'd ever walked through the front, you knew that that was not natural in the late 60s. And I'm looking at, how is she doing that? She had 3 places set, and one of those places at the table was for me. She lived with a sister, and I remember thinking rather meanly, it figures, you know, what man would live with old battle axe, you know? But I'm sitting there eating lunch inside of this home. Let me tell you, I was so busy listening to what she was doing that I heard very little of what she had to say. She was just pouring it in, just these gems feeding into me. But I'm listening to what you're doing. Young people, prep, don't forget this. Some of the most powerful, some of the most pointed, some of the most poignant messages that you will ever deliver or receive will occur without the employment of a single word. The messaging, kind of like St. Francis of Assisi, go forth and preach the gospel always, and when necessary, use words. Now that's a powerful line. Her actions were speaking to me. And I remember her recapturing my listening attention when she said to me, Frank, Larry, I think you ought to go to college. Now, nobody had ever used my name in college in the same sentence, ever. I left her, went back to my homeboys. Melvin was one of them. Man, guess what old Battle Axe said to me? She thinks I ought to go to college. Can you believe? And we just laughed at the absurdity of it. But if Miss Nichols thought that I could be as smart as Frank, I mean, I would look at the Franks. I would look at the Katies and the Katrinas, and I say, man, I wish I could be smart like. Nobody ever told me I was dumb, but I didn't think that I was smart. Miss Nichols reaffirmed, yes, you have something to offer. Yes, you can measure up. To the faculty, the administrators, to the deans today, understand that your words are powerful. They have meaning. Somebody will decide whether to come back next semester or not based on your words. I've written 2 books. I still can't identify a dangling participle or a participle phrase, but I can tell you how much Ms. Nichols cared for me. I go to a little junior college. What would I study in college, Ms. Nichols? You've been helping me with my bulletin board all year. You can study art. Wow. Is that a thing? That's something you can study in college? She's reaching me. But what's the problem with that? You see, we get these social construct messages that are not true, but we believe them because they've been sent. Every Baroque stylist, all of the Renaissance artists, Titian, Monet, Renoir, El Greco, none of those guys look like me, and they didn't look like you. So now we can choose to believe that there was no female talent in those days. I refuse to believe that there was no black talent or somebody didn't represent history correctly. Let's defy social construct so that we can get to a better place. My message today is all about winning. It is about personal discipline, personal accountability. It might surprise you to know many of us watched the Super Bowl just this past Sunday. We saw the Titans. We saw some of the great, didn't matter what your team was, but you gotta respect what it took to get there. But to my prep students, may I say this to you. It may surprise you to know that Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes might not be the best quarterbacks in the world. Steph Curry, LeBron James may very well not be the best basketball players. Now, nobody likes to think of this, but I want you to know what I'm saying. The best basketball player is probably playing street ball somewhere or in prison, throwing down on the courtyard moves that would cause any recruiter to envy him. Why is he not in the NBA? No discipline. Wouldn't come to practice. Would not practice before. Always remember, the athlete who asked the coach, how much should we practice? How often do I have to practice, coach? Coach turns it back around. How good do you want to be? Simple question. It comes back to us. There are more people who miss their end who could be a fantastic. And I'm not just talking about in sports. Darren has had it. I remember when I worked at Coke, I had to terminate a guy. He could paint the signs, Darren, erect the signs, service the signs. He was an electrician, all of that. But he was a real negative downer. And I had to make a decision to either terminate that person or lose my department. Darren knows what I'm talking about. And you hate to see that kind of talent walk out of the door. But if you're not disciplined, you can't do my whole program. And I had to hire 2 people to replace it because we were right in the middle of a war with Pepsi at that time. So we got everything is full running. I hired 2 people to replace him, but I saved my department. And I would expect you, we love the numbers that we see at board meeting. We got one later this month. So do what you need to do, bro, to make it happen, to keep the numbers coming. But that's what it is, as I wrap this up. I'm watching how's the time, by the way? I want to be, because I want a question or two. But I'm watching the NBA Finals. Now, this is in the mid-'80s, when you had the real Boston Celtics. Larry Bird, we had the real LA Lakers. But I'm watching this game, and just before the teams were about to exit the locker room and onto the court for play, the media camera would focus on this little piece of what I would call nondescript, insignificant sports philosophy. Just 3 lines of copy. The game has been scheduled, so we have to play. Why not win? And when I read that in the mid-'80s, I knew instantly that those 3 lines of copy would resonate with me for the remainder of my days. We can play with the words. You have been born, so you have to live. Why not win? I mean, imagine having met the criteria to play in an NBA final game. Well, you can't just not show up. You got to go, and you got to play. And if you're going to go through the pushing, the shoving, the jockeying for positioning, the foul, the injury, we might as well win this thing. What an awesome approach to life. And to win, young people, in life, you can't take an old passive and apathetic, lukewarm, mediocre, lackadaisical, old commonplace, ordinary, and everyday. That ain't the way you win anything. To win, you want to be extraordinary, unusual, dynamic in your approach. If you will do that, then I believe that winning is inevitable for all of us. Thank you all very much. And I'll take a question or two. Thank you. So while we're getting a question together, as I said, Darren and I started in 79, Birmingham Coat. Luke Cranford, I don't know if you remember that name, but hired me in over the phone. Never filled out an application or anything. So I'm at Coca-Cola. But here's the thing that got me there. So I've been there maybe 3 months, but I'm really not coming there to stay. I just want to learn how to paint signs because there were no black sign painters in that day, and I wanted to get good at it. But before that could happen, Brent Mizell, my boss, walked in, and I was being promoted to advertising manager. You'll read about it in the book. Wow. Now, here's a message. Please don't miss this message. You don't have a business card on you, do you? Not with you? Yeah, no, I'm just going to use this. This is a big business card. So, he brings the box. I don't know that I'm being promoted, but I picked up one of those business cards. I didn't look at the title. I didn't look at the address or the location. All I saw was Larry D. Thornton, name right next to the most recognized trademark in the world. My marketing ladies over here, we talked about before, I mean, that's huge. Ladies and gentlemen, that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity. Now, to all of the adults and to you young people, you can go to work every day counting your sick days, seeing how many personal leave days you have, can't wait to get out of there, looking at the clock at 10 o'clock going, oh my God, it's only 10 o'clock. I've got 6 more hours to. What a horrible place to be. But you could look at this great brand that I have an opportunity to be associated with, Coca-Cola, and you can be grateful for the opportunity. What happens when you are grateful to be a part of this great institution, to be a part of Coca-Cola and a family that is second to none, the Johnson family? I could just go on and on about what they've done for my own personal success and the success of others. You see, the real grit comes out when we have a disaster there, and you've seen that. And the way this company goes into families, I mean, I wish I had time to just tell you about it. It's an opportunity. If you were not responsible, you wouldn't be in this room. But what you might not be is grateful for the opportunity. What happens when you work from a gratitude perspective? Well, Darren, you come in early. You stay late. You come in on the weekends. You offer yourself to do whatever the company needs if I can do it. You become someone that the company would not want to be without. But you do that for yourselves. That's the message I think that I'm trying to get over. And these same people who are counting sick days and looking for every opportunity to be off are wanting the most money, usually, want the biggest position, usually, and have not demonstrated any. I just don't want you to fall into that trap. If you are in that 10 o'clock session, I guarantee you if you changed your attitude, you wouldn't even recognize when it happened, but you'll know when you look at the clock at 2 o'clock and you say, oh my God, it's 2 o'clock already? I haven't done half the things that I wanted to get done today. That's when you know you're involved in purposeful work and you are making a difference. I can't think of any other reason. Darren, I would go over sometimes on a Saturday or a Sunday, Claude's name and my name, we had to sign in on the weekend, would be the only two names on the roster. I'm sure Claude must have at one point says, why is this guy from the sign shop coming over here on the weekends? But we were passionate around the same brand. There was only one place for that to go. I had a boss, Darren, to ask me, why do you come over here so much? You don't own this company. That's what he said to me. I didn't even have an answer for him. But today, when I get my stock report, although Darren, it says 0.00000, but it shows that I am indeed an owner of the company. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the way it worked. It's all on you, believe it or not. It's all on you. Any questions? Yes, sir. What a great question. In fact, there's a line in my book where I do talk to my younger self. I have a line in there that says, when I'm integrating schools, because it was scary. I mean, it was, why did my mama do this? But I did not know that that was my time to lean in, to do what I can do to create a better circumstance and a better community. My words in there, I wish I could find it on the line. It says, I know that you are afraid. I know that you are uncomfortable. But if you conquer this, you will reap a benefit that's beyond you and your community. And I mean, I'm just 12 years old. What do I know that what I'm going to do? My learning how to become comfortable in that very uncomfortable setting created a platform for the life that I live today. I mean, almost identical. And if I had missed getting comfortable in that strange sea of white folk, that's the way we saw it. We would say all the time, they all look just alike, man. But it was different. It was just different. And I became comfortable in that setting. Well, look at my world today. My son and I are the only black owner-operators. Before 5 years ago, the only black on the board of directors, first and only black at Coke, the only black today at Synovus Bank, The Club, one of the most prestigious dining facility, over 6,000 members, the first black all of these things. Had I missed that, I might have missed this. So a lot of times when things are happening to us, it's not about that moment. It's in prep a lot of times for what's to come. We went to this white school. I would hang out with Eddie and Ronnie and Melvin. And so these little strange nuances, different from our community. The first thing we noticed is, man, they love their dogs over here. Have you seen how they love dogs? Well, that wasn't my experience. Our dogs were outside in the yard. They ate what we didn't eat. We put water out for it. That was it, the dog. I said, they treat their dogs like family, man. Can you believe that? And so you're getting used to that. Yeah. Or you would hear a kid might say, Mom and Dad had a fight last night. Well, what they really meant is argument. That wasn't the case in our family, okay? If we say Mom and Dad had a fight, blood was drawn, okay? It was a fight. Here's the strangest one. Give me your name again. Omar, when I first met you. Here's one. So these kids had gotten crossways with each other. Now, I'd been at Booker T. Washington for 2 years, and now I'm over here in this strange. So this little kid said, you meet me at 3:30 and I'll kick your ass. I said, Ronnie, man, they planned their fights over here. We never did that. You just fought, got expelled, put out of school. But anyway, those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. And so when I get to Vestavia and I'm teaching school and an animal has to be put down, I got a better understanding now because I was getting me ready. But thank you for that question. Yeah, there's some difficult challenges that are in life. When I graduated high school finally, had there been a category in our yearbook that identified the most unlikely person to succeed at anything, my photograph could have been right next to that. Isn't that amazing? But here's the message. As long as we do not allow our past missteps to define us, it is unbelievable what awaits us. Don't stumble over something that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Believe it or not, people are still dealing with things that happened as a child. Forgive yourself, forgive that fool, and get on with your life. That's the message. That's the message. Today, every one of us, essentially y'all are kind of young, but even you all might. All of us have chapters in our lives that we wouldn't wish to have read out loud. It's called living. But don't let that define you. Don't let that define you. And people are held up every day. So these things that I'm talking about, it's not that I'm brilliant or anything. It's just that you apply your own personal discipline to where you want to be, where you want to go. Question. I don't know, how's the time now? Now these are from prep. That's what I'm talking about.
We don't want to hear them.
Yeah.
Okay. When you graduated from high school, how was the transition? Like, how did you know what you wanted to do?
Well, I really didn't. So I got recruited because you got to understand now, I go to this little junior college, but Ms. Nichols has happened. I'm somebody. I got pride. I'm winning awards and I'm good. Go to this little junior college for 2 semesters. I transfer to Alabama State. I get recruited instantly because of my talents. I become a yearbook artist and the athletic artist. All of my tuition, books, I practically lived in the art department at Alabama State University, a school that I couldn't have even gotten in coming out of high school. And I went on to become the chairman of the board of trustees of that school, hiring the first female president, Dr. Gwendolyn Boyd. When I was on campus as a student, if we ever saw the president or a dean, where's the interim dean? Is he still here? He's already moved? Yeah. If we ever saw a dean, my group, now we weren't troublemakers, but there's no need to have any conversation with the dean or the president. But your gifts will make a place for you, young people. I went from avoiding the college president to hiring one of his successors. That's what your gifts will do for you. That's what your gifts will do for you. So I did not know what I wanted to do. I got recruited out of my senior year to teach art at Vestavia Hills High School. Taught for 4 years. I could have been a teacher all my life. My second grade teacher was an artist. Miss Nichols was just my hero. It was easy. I want to be a teacher. Well, the state and the universe had something else in mind. After 4 years, they prorated education. 8 of us lost our jobs. I was the last art teacher in, so I lost my job. I was one of the 8. Frank, I never heard of losing a job without having created an offense. That was hard for me. I mean, if you're going to get fired, you have to have done something. How do you lose a job if you got good reports? And when I got that straight in my head and realized that they didn't take my job, they took their job, I knew intuitively that I wanted to go and get my job. And so that's how life happens. I wasn't looking to go to work. You know, even when I called Luke, I didn't tell him this, but I wanted to just be there 5-6 months. Even when I opened my first restaurant in 1992, I go into Claude, I've got my resignation, and he refused to take my resignation. Isn't that amazing? I have been leaving Coca-Cola for 45 years. And I ain't gone yet there. People will ask a question similar to yours, and I think this is what you're getting at. At the last session that we did, Gary, I think we were at West Georgia, and the young lady says, how do you know, how do I know what to be passionate about? Where's my passion? It was a fair question. It was a great question. But here's the way I answered it. Everything that you do it with passion and enthusiasm. Then your passion will find you. You don't have to worry about looking for your passion. Just be passionate. You know, we took a course at Coca-Cola. Claude was in that course years and years ago. Dale Carnegie. And before we started the sessions, here's what we would do. They roll up a piece of newspaper. Act enthusiastic, you'll be enthusiastic. Act enthusiastic, you'll be enthusiastic. It's all in the act. It's all in the act. But what do most people do? They do what everybody else does. And until you can break away from a pigeon mentality and take on an eagle's mentality who doesn't fly in flocks, that's where your life changes. You have the capacity to do that. Now, I don't recommend that to people who don't want to do it, but if you want more, if you want to really self-actualize, that's where the value is. I'm a bus boy at Howard Johnson. Anybody ever heard of Howard Johnson? Are they still around? Oh, the old Johnson. So I'm a bus boy, dishwasher. One night, the manager comes in, and she's got a vest and a bow tie. I have no idea that it's for me. She said to me, "Larry, have you ever thought of being a waiter?" I said, "No, ma'am." "I think you'd make a great waiter, Larry." I'm just still wondering, where's this conversation going? But she said 3 things to me that I would argue were absolutely identical to what the founder of First Commercial Bank and the chief legal counsel came and were concerned about. She said the same thing. Now, we're talking about a directorship on a board, one of the largest southeastern companies, Synovus Bank. I've been on that board now for 30 plus years. But here's what the manager said to me. She says, "Well, I think you would make a great waiter." Let's don't miss this. These lessons are meant for you to grow from. She said, "You come to work on time. You don't complain or criticize when we have late parties and you don't get out of here until 1 and 1:30 sometimes. And besides, the other waiters and waitresses think a lot of you." Do you know how many people, once again, miss their end? Not because they're not capable. People don't think well of them. They are not of good rapport. If you are around anybody who's going around saying, "Man, I don't care what they think about me," you need to get as far away from that kind of thinking as you can. Other people will, I want to say literally, but I can't, I have to say virtually. But other people will virtually lift you up and deliver you unto the desires of your heart. People ask, "Well, man, how do you get on a paying board? Man, I want one of them boards." That's what these 3 corporate boards are. They pay you for going to a meeting. That's pretty cool, you know. But they'll ask me, "How do you get on a paying board?" And I'll tell them, "Well, every paying board that I'm on started with a volunteer board." "What do you do? What are you doing for the community? What kind of?" "Oh, you know, man, I don't have time." This stuff is not rocket science. You gotta put the work in. And there are people, I'm afraid to say, right here at Chattanooga Coca-Cola, who won't come in early, who won't stay late, all of that stuff. And Darren and the team has to manage through all of that and take advantage of that top 15, 20% that do understand what we're trying to do here, the big picture, you know, but not willing to put the work in. Take this to the bank. Anybody who is not willing to do more than he or she is paid to do usually ain't worth whatever they're being paid. Now, you just check that out and you'll find it to be true. You have to put the work in up front, often with little to no reward. Granddaddy would go and bust up a frozen ground in the winter, set the rows, plant the corn in March, go back and chop weeds in April, all the while smelling this stinking mule. I would just watch him. I'd find him in the field. No corn. Do you know how many people miss their end because the results don't come quick enough? If you run up to a ladder with the intentions of leaping to the 9th or 10th rung, I can just about tell you you're going to end up back on the ground, possibly injured. Darren has to deal with that. I've been here for 6 months, and I ought to be an on-premise manager by now, don't you think? It's up to us, and we miss that. You got to put the work in up front. The corn is not coming from my granddad until late July, but he has to work all summer long. The next time you see the launching of a spaceship, keep this in mind. We've all seen it. You know, it's fascinating. All of the smoke and the fire, and the rocket is just moving like at a snail's pace. Know this. When I heard it for the first time, I had to go back to the speaker and I asked him, did you say what 90% of the fuel on any spacecraft is expended at takeoff. All of that fuel. And you're going to burn 90% of it just to get off the ground. That's what you all are doing right now in this school. Your first obligation is to finish. And don't expect to be the vice president of whatever company you work for in 6 months or a year. Or it takes the time. 90%. In other words, once you get the momentum and you break the Earth's atmosphere, I only need 10%. I thought that was the most fascinating piece of information that I got. And it helps me to know that you got to put the work in first up front. Don't want to overstay my welcome. Let me do this. Come on up here. So, this is one of my latest pieces, and I hope that you all can kind of walk up and take a look at this. I used a style, Frank. Your name is on this, by the way, sir. I wanted you to have this. I love giving art. I don't sell my art. We don't sell these books. And they're buying them. Fine entrepreneur I am. They're buying the books 2,000, 3,000 at a time. But 100% of proceeds go back into the Institute so that we can do the work that we do. But this style, that's Charlie Parker. He was very big in the 40s and 50s. Charlie the Bird Parker. But if you look at this style, Frank, real close, those are dots, the tie. That style is called pointillism. It was mimicked after a French artist, Georges Seurat. I've never seen pointillism done in pencil, always in paint. A brother just did it in pencil. See, I love challenges. Do you love challenges? If you don't love challenges, it's wow. So, Frank, I've got your name on this presented to you. You have been awesome in your communication and getting us here, and it's been my pleasure to be here, and I hope that you'll find some way to get me back again, my friend. Absolutely. Good. Absolutely. Thank y'all. Uh-oh.
So, thank you. I mean, so I'm a former trumpet player.
Oh, really?
So I know Charlie Parker. I love the music.
Awesome.
Perfect. Couldn't be more fitting.
Perfect.
So I have a small thing from Dave and I for you, actually. So Dave Ketchen and I and Jim Combs and Larry doesn't actually know this, but we just had an article published in a pretty top journal in our field. And the journal's called Organizational Dynamics, and it targets MBA students and practitioners. And we just had this. This is like literally hot off the press. And the title is How Franchisees Can Leverage Soft Skills to Facilitate Implementation, Winning Insights from a Multi-Unit Operator, which is based all off of Larry's work. And actually, throughout it, I mean, we went all out. You can see graphic novels.
Is that not too cool?
So that is for you from Dave.
Oh, wow. I can't wait. He kept all this from me.
He kept it all from
We
me,
talked yesterday. I was at his house yesterday.
I sent pictures to you. It was telling me, he's like, and so we want you to have the hot off the presses copy.
Absolutely.
I built, again, all of your work. So.
Ms. Nichols, are you getting this? I mean, it's never know where you're going to go. Never appreciate that. This, I'll treasure this. I'll treasure this.
So if you guys want, Larry is going to be in the back here. He can answer more questions. We're going to sign autographs if you so want them. Please do feel free to take that opportunity. Really, again, appreciate all of you for coming. I hope you learned a lot from this. And I hope we can get him back at some point in the future. So maybe
Great, great. Thank you all. Great order. So you want me to be back here? Okay. Good. So we'll go back here. Thank you all for the questions. Appreciate that.